Well, hey everyone, Pastor Justin here, and happy, I don't even know what day we'll have this. You're probably on our podcast, you might be watching it online. No matter what that is for you, I'm so glad you guys are tuned in today. So, we're finishing our series in Making Change, and as you guys can tell, the last couple of weeks, the way that I like to look at generosity is those four statements: less is more, stress is bad, giving is good, and tomorrow matters. And so, on Sunday, we talked about how giving is good and why it's important for us to be people who trust God with the tithe, who plan our generosity, and we start being generous now. So then what's next? So it's one thing for me to talk about how less is more, to cut back, to clear out, and to pay off, how stress is bad, and that we pray that God gives us self-control, that God makes us aware of the decisions we make with our resources. But then what about tomorrow? And so if you guys have met Brother Elton, he's been in some of our worship experiences. He has also been at our church meetings as well. Brother Elton serves as our financial consultant here at Friendship, and I thought it'd be great to bring him in, to bring on screen, to have a chance to talk about tomorrow. And so, welcome, Brother Elton. Welcome, man.
I'm glad to be here.
Yes, sir.
It's a pleasure.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Brother Elton told me some amazing things. You are from Louisiana, right?
Correct.
And you worked for Safeway for some years.
Yes, I did.
And then you worked at Mount Calvary under Dr. Lee.
Yes.
Shout out Dr. Claiborne Lee, right? One of God's best preachers, man. Oh my gosh, one of God's absolute best. And then you retired, and then we grabbed you as soon as you did, right?
Yes, you did. You did.
And so Brother Elton has been with us for a couple of years, working behind the scenes, doing some amazing work. Thank you, man, for
I appreciate
everything
being
you've
able
made
to
us
do
aware.
it.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
man, this has been a journey. I won't say fun journey, but it's been a journey.
Yes. But a good journey.
Yeah, a good one. And he's assisted us in leading through our audit, and just all of our financial systems. And so I thought he'd be a great voice to have a conversation with about the future. So I sent you some questions, so I'll start there, man. And I guess when I talk about the future for me, I think about investments, I think about insurance. I have done far too many GoFundMe funerals, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
I also, as someone, my mother, she had some things set up, but because of life and things, she ended up closing down her life insurance. So when we had to bury her, it's the generosity of people that got us through. And as I think about our church and everything, and about investing well, I guess the first question I'll ask you is about understanding investments. Like, how can I ensure that I can get a clear understanding on investing? Like, what terms or a general outlook on investments do people need to know?
I think that when you look at investments, you want to look at your financial portfolio. What do you want to achieve over a period of time in your life in preparation for the future? I think investment is a good tool to have. I found that the biggest challenge with a lot of people when it comes to investment is putting money aside to invest,
Got it.
which makes it very difficult because most people, when you talk to them, live from paycheck to paycheck. And when it comes to investment, that's one of the farthest things from their minds is investing. But my idea to people is to tell them that put a little aside each paycheck or each whatever stream of income you're getting. Put a little aside, and a little become much over time. It will not happen overnight. But if you take and I like to use the word discipline. If you discipline yourself enough over time, it would make a significant difference for you and for your family in the long run.
Got it. So would you suggest, like, is it like a certain part of our paycheck or just whatever you feel comfortable with to put aside?
I would say that the way I look at that is that if you're working for a company, say, for example, I would say that 20% of what you earn should go to two things. One, 10% goes to God, because I believe everyone should tithe, because God comes first in our lives, as you know. And the other 10% to you, to yourself. And you take that 10% and you put aside and begin investing it into. I was working with a young lady at Mount Calvary, and I told her I would assist and help her. And so what we did is that we put together a plan where she would put so much aside until she accumulated about $5,000. And I told her, I said, now if you take and put this aside over a period of time. Then we're going to take that 5,000 and talk about a plan for investing that
Got it.
and what would be best for you
Got it.
over time. And I do believe that if a person take that initiative and say take the first say 5 years and develop that type of discipline, they will be amazed of what they can achieve in terms of financial positioning themselves
Wow.
in that period of time.
Wow.
I do believe it would make a significant difference.
Yeah, you know,
Yes.
one of the things I talked about when it came to giving is good is moving from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset, right?
Yes.
And this fear that I have to hoard what I have because I won't have anything else coming in.
Right.
How can we shift our perspective from a temporary, so I hear what you're saying, like a temporary, like, I got to keep it or spend it mentality to a long term mindset and perspective? Because what I hear you saying on investments, it's like you're not going to get, it's not going to put 5,000 in today
That's right.
and get 50,000 tomorrow.
That's correct.
How can we work to shift our perspective from today to tomorrow on that?
I think that the way you do that is that you look at, and you're right, when people look at hoarding and don't want to relinquish that because they're fearful of what may happen. I may need this tomorrow. Or a lot of time you hear people say, I'm not guaranteed tomorrow, you know, so therefore they're not willing to put that aside for someone else, they say, to spend it when they're no longer here,
That's
you
right.
know.
Yeah, that's
So,
right. That's
so what I try to get them to understand is that if you would uh, take the mindset that yes, I may not be here, but if you put yourself in a position that if you have children, grandchildren, friends, or whatever the case may be, or even your church, where if you're no longer here, you leave something behind. It's amazing what that legacy will do for you. Even though you're gone, your name will be brought up long after you're no longer here and saying, hey, that man Joe Blow did this for our church. We are able to do this because of what he did. But I think the biggest thing is that take the little and take the mindset that, yes, I do have a little. I can still enjoy some of the finer things of life, you know, but yet not to the extent where I'm putting myself in debt.
That's real.
Don't put yourself in debt to do this. You know,
Yeah.
just take a little aside and put it for what I call a rainy day.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about legacy giving too, because that's a great opportunity. And shameless plug, starting the end of January, we're going to be talking about our capital campaign, a small capital campaign for here at the church for renovation of our entire facility, removal of a building, lights, camera action inside of the sanctuary, and renovating our office spaces. And one of the areas we'll bring up is legacy giving. And I'm 35. I know you're 36, but I'm 35, right? And every time I brought that up in my career, it comes. I don't want it to come across the wrong way. And so, would you mind explaining like what legacy giving is, and you explain the impact, but like for someone that as we start having this conversation about legacy giving and all of that, like willing money to the church, all of that, do you mind explaining that a little bit?
Okay, yes. What I think that we as individuals should think about is what do we want our legacy to be once we are no longer here, and what contributions have we made to society, to life, to others. You know, so legacy giving is to think about what you want to leave behind, because a lot of people talk about, you know, I'm gonna spend it all and I don't want to leave nothing for nobody to. But in reality, we do want to succeed in life, and therefore we want to leave something behind for our loved ones, for our church, for institutions, or whatever we have an interest in. And so when we look at legacy giving, how much do we want to put in our will for the church, for family members? And that's another thing I'm going to hit upon in a minute, is that so therefore we want to decide what we want to leave behind. You know, we put it in a will, 10% if you desire to do that, of what your net worth is. You know, if you have been successful in life, that could be millions of dollars, you know, that you're leaving for the church and for to continue to build the kingdom in positive ways, you know, where you're still helping not just the local church, but the church help throughout the country, throughout the the world, and it makes a big difference in that way.
Yeah.
So you want to do that, and when you look into to give to say your church that have nurtured you, that have spiritual spiritually fed you
Yeah.
during your life, how much does value does that carry, and how much you want to leave behind
Yeah.
for them to continue the ministry and to do for others as they come as infant in Christ and developing
Yeah.
to be true and rich and wholesome
Yeah.
Christians, So that's
Yeah.
something we definitely should be looking at and taking into consideration.
That is so real. I've what my biggest goal right now for me personally is before I go into glory is to have the theology school at my alma mater, Marquette University. I want to name it after myself, right? So my big goal is I don't know how I'm going to become a multimillionaire to have like $26 billion over, but I'm hopeful to have a statue of a black preacher outside this white school. This theology. That's my goal, and as I've been working here, and as I was looking at my former context as well, the church we did our largest campaign at. The reason we were able to push it over was because of some people who left money behind for church's facility, and they had that money named for either the building or for youth ministry or whatever, that they were able to name it. And so that was really great to think about and to receive, that we were able to push over. Now we did name like the library after them and the coffee place and all of that, and it was really cool to do, see the families love it and all of that. But it's so impactful, right, to leave that for people we may never meet, yeah. So I guess how does someone go about doing that? Is something that you have a conversation with your attorney, with your accountant? So if I'm interested, if someone's listening, and or if a child is listening and their parent is, and they're in the process of planning wills or writing wills, or even for us, like right now, my wife and I, we're working on ours. If hopefully nothing happens, so we're working on ours. Like, who do we talk about that to, and how do we begin that conversation to have that?
That's a very good question. And you mentioned an attorney, and there are a number of attorneys locally in the area that are willing to sit and talk with you as the pastor about coming in and making a presentation to the body, and letting them know how they could set up these different programs for them to leave funds for the church, or to leave whatever. It doesn't have to be money. It could be properties. It could be a number of things that we do. But yes, they would show you how to set it up. And when you set up your living trust, they would incorporate that into it. So when you're no longer here, that become a part of what they would leave behind for the church.
Awesome. Awesome. That's a part of that long-term perspective, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So now I want to shift a little bit. I want to talk a little bit to my generation too. So I am 35, and I plan on retiring from pastoring in the next like 25 years, and I will teach, but I want to make room for the next me that comes along before I can't walk to the pulpit anymore, right? Like, I refuse to be one of these pastors who's 95 years old on a walker talking about I can still do it. No, I can't. I want to go enjoy my son. And so as I prepare for retirement, I saw this quote as I was reading for this series and studying for this series, that retirement is not an age, it's a number.
That is correct.
So can you explain that a little bit?
Okay, what it means is that we have been taught when we were coming up that retirement is 65, 70, whatever that is, But in reality, if you were in a position, either through inheritance or through your own work effort, that you're able to generate a nest egg and have abundance of monies in your portfolio, you're able to decide when you want to retire. You could do other things other than what it takes to generate income. You could do things to pour back in the community, pour back in the people, teach others how they could become wealthy, how they could become like you are, and not have to work all those years until you're traditionally using the 65, 70-year-old as a means of when you should retire. Because even though and I've seen people accomplish this, even though that you're working for a company, say, for example, there are other things you could be doing in addition to that job to
Yeah.
help generate generational wealth. You know, you can have a second income. You could have other outside sources. You could have investments.
Yeah.
You know, all these things. And what you want to do is get you an investment advisor
Got it.
that will sit down with you and plan it out. Say, and they'll tell you, say, when do you want to retire? You know, and then they have formulas they're put together and telling you what you need to do in order to get the income level to what you want to
Yeah.
do upon retirement, or how much income you want to incur
Yeah.
upon retirement,
Yeah.
be it 35, 45, 55.
Yeah.
And you may need, if you want to retire, say you're 35 and 45, you got to put together an aggressive program for 10 years in
Yeah.
order for you to achieve what you're
Yeah.
looking to accomplish within that time frame.
No, that's so real. No, thank you for that. Yeah, no, for me, I mean, like honestly, I joke about some of the pastors I've seen that are in the pulpit just way too late. And I said, you know, for me, from public pastoral ministry, I'm 20, 25 years, and then I want to teach still, but I want God's church to be great, but also at the same time, like I want to enjoy my grandkids. Uh,
Absolutely,
while my knees are still
absolutely.
good.
I
And
know.
so,
I have my grandson who is 6, and
yeah.
he definitely keep me active at this stage of life.
No, that's so. What are some things we should be on the lookout for financial advisors? So if I'm looking for a financial advisor to help with that, right? Because I've seen, so just you know, once I'm like every I don't know, it seems like every financial system I've ever used, you get an email from like whoever they're partnered with, and like we'll be your advisor, or the system wants to be your advisor, or even like the retirement I do have, they want to be it, and so my wife and I are personally praying through that right now. But what are some things we should be on the lookout for to want in an advisor, but then things we like should be red flags if we look for one?
An advisor should be one who have their client's best interest at heart.
Sure.
You know, they need to uh, be looking at how can I best serve this individual. A lot of individuals out there, they're looking at themselves first and how much money I can get from that individual. You're looking for someone who will be more in a position to, yes, get maybe something upfront, but gain more as you gain. And
Got it.
therefore, it would be more advantageous to them in the long run
Yeah.
if they make you successful.
Got
Yes.
it. Got it. Okay. Now that's a different perspective.
Yes, it is.
I've seen,
Yes.
I've seen, or I've had people that got duped. We had there was this church. I wasn't at the church. I heard about this. A colleague of mine who had someone come in the church, and they remember like, oh doc, I'll do this presentation, and he just wanted people to write him a check like in the room, right? And he literally shut it down. Like, man, something's not right about this, and found out that it was like it was a scheme, right? And I didn't
Absolutely.
realize there are people still doing stuff like that.
Yes.
But that's interesting. So to have an advisor that wants to grow with you,
That's correct.
that's
Yes.
okay. That's a great perspective. No, thank you.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
for that. So what about so insurance, right? So we personally we just purchased about a year ago life insurance for us and everything. But can you talk a little bit about like I wrote a couple things that I wrote: homeowners, car, health, life, disability. How do these insurances contribute to financial security? Because I want to, I guess, just that whole perspective shift on it. That I'm not just getting life insurance to die well, but how do these like homeowners, health, car, how do they help us stay financially secure?
And I think you have to look at each one of them individually. When you look at homeowners, when you look at car, when you look at uh, uh, life insurance, but one thing that I can say that insurance is one of those necessities in life. Maybe I wouldn't call it an evil, but one of those things that you should make sure you embody and make sure that you, because things happen in life.
Yeah.
You know, you hope nothing happens. You hope you never have an accident. You hope you, even though we know we're gonna die, you hope you never die. You
Yeah.
know, type of
Yeah.
thing. But you have to decide. Uh, what's best for you and your family. You know, because if you're not insured, and say you have a car or a home, and something unfortunately happened to you, you get in an accident, you get sued, you know,
Yeah.
and say you've accumulated some wealth, you could lose all that in the blink of an eye
Absolutely.
if you have not insured yourself. So
Absolutely.
therefore, you want to make sure that you have something there. Hopefully, you never need, but if you do, it's there.
Got
You
it.
know, and how much insurance will depend on each individual in terms of what their assets are, what their needs are,
Yeah.
you know, and then make a decision with their family, the wife and husband, what's best for us at this stage. And you want to look at that like you look at anything else. Every year or two, you want to reassess where you
Yeah.
are.
That's
What
real.
do we need to change where we are
Yeah.
today, 2 years from now or 5 years from now? Because sometimes we get caught up in day to day life. We forget to go back and review
That's real.
those things, and therefore something may occur. You may have accumulated a lot more wealth, and but you didn't bring the insurance along with
That's so
that
true.
accumulation. So you always want to be mindful of that. And now when you're talking about uh, life insurance, that, you know, as you know, a lot of people, and recently I've seen it in my own family, where someone died and they don't have to, so they have to do a GoFundMe or something like that in order to have to get some money to
Mm-hmm.
bury their loved one.
Mm-hmm.
uh, I think that everyone should have some sort of insurance. Yes, you got term insurance is a cheap, and it get more expensive as you get
Yeah.
older. But I encourage younger people to get whole life policies, or
Okay.
policies that will generate some type of return
Got it.
on it. And
Can you explain the differences between that? Because we learned that the hard way.
okay.
So, what's the difference between term life and whole life?
Okay, term life is just like it says. Say you get a term, say for 10 years,
Got it.
you will pay the same amount over that 10-year period of
Mm-hmm.
time. When that 10-year elapse, the policy elapse. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and so if you want another one, then you have to build another one. And then if you're 10 years older, it's going to be higher than the previous 10-year policy that
Yeah.
you had. A whole life policy is one that you establish, and there are many types of whole life policies, but you get, say, this particular one,
Mm-hmm.
and say it's $25,000. It develops a cash value over time, and say in, say, 15 or 20 years, say we bought a whole life policy for our children, you know, and say we did a $50,000 policy for our daughter. She's 32 now.
Mm-hmm.
She still have that policy. The cash value on that policy, I think, is about $20,000 right
Mm-hmm.
now. But in addition to that, she has a child. If something unfortunately would happen to her, that value of that policy is
Wow.
$125,000.
Yeah.
You know, so there's more, and the price of it stays the same
Got it.
through his life.
Yeah.
You know, through the entirety of his
Yeah.
life. So
So
yeah.
we learned that because we were sitting down and we were trying to figure out what the stuff we were on. Literally, my wife went to the bathroom, got on YouTube, and was trying to figure out the differences because we were talking to
Yeah.
someone. And we're like, "What is the difference between term and whole?"
Yes.
And we learned that not necessarily, I don't say the hard way, but we went with whole life insurance. We were trying to figure out the differences between this term and whole. And so at the end of the day, it
Yes.
was much better to have whole life insurance to be prepared for the future
Yeah.
than just to have the one. Let me ask you this: so if there were some key financial terms that you would suggest that we need to be educated on, to be aware of, what are a couple of those concepts or terms that we just need to? Because I think about, like, I coach football, and my wife knows nothing about football, and so we'll sit there. I'll be talking about tackles, and she's like, "Is that defense or offense?" I'm like, "Both," and she's like, "Which one?" Right? So I'm curious, as people are navigating through this, is seeking to be financially stable and wise. What are some key concepts or terms that we should know, or at least search and be aware of? Uh,
Yeah, I think that some of the key terms that we should be cognizant of is budgeting,
mm-hmm,
you know, planning,
mm-hmm,
investments, stewardship.
mm-hmm,
You know, these are key uh, 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 items that I think that we should put in our memory bank, and then develop a knowledge of what it means in depth, in terms of investment. What does that mean? What are all the components that goes into that? What, because there are a multitude of those type of things.
That's right.
And so you just want to make sure that, and budgeting. I always talk about budgeting a lot because I've been trying to develop classes with budgeting, especially with the younger generation, because as you know, they have the want it now, in terms of delayed gratification. That's not one of the things that a lot of them have an interest in. So you want to talk about these terms in terms of what do they mean, how can they best benefit me, and how can I utilize these things that's going to make a difference in my life as we go forward.
That's so real. No, that's
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah.
I know, like, I've been really big on budgeting this series,
Mhm.
right? And the importance of when we put those of you who want to, on our website, the links below, about get out of debt free kit, the retirement quotient calculator, things like that. Our goal is to just educate everyone as much as we can so that you guys have access. And also, we linked David Ramsey as well as Crown Financial Groups, both Christian organizations, just help us be wise with our resources. So I guess one of the last questions I have here is, what biblical principles or values can guide me to make sound financial decisions? And I say that because as I got into this series, and I've been pastoring now for almost 10 years, I've been in ministry for almost 15, I was like, I'm going to try to attack this at a different angle, because every time I've ever heard money sermons, it's always like give,
Yes.
right? You better give, you're not giving enough. What are some solid biblical principles or values that can help us look at managing our money wisely? And if we're going to pray over our money, what are some scriptures or values that we can make sure we apply to it?
Okay, I have a few. I have five in particular that I have here. And the first thing I say was spend less than you earn. Okay, and the biblical principle on that came from Proverbs 13 and 11, which say, wealth quickly gotten dwindles away. So, but amass little by little, it grows.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the things we have been talking about during this conversation we have had, and that is spend less than you earn. But a lot of people you find spend more than they earn, and therefore there's more than money,
Yeah,
So
100%.
so that's the first one. The second one, be wise with debt, and that comes from Proverbs 22 and 7, which tells us, the rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is a slave to the lender. So be wise in the debt that you accumulate, and making sure that you don't become a slave to the lender.
That's real.
Okay.
That's real.
The third is that plan for financial margin, because the unexpected will occur. We talked about insurance and things like that, and that comes from Proverbs 6 through 8, and it says, "Go to the ant, you sluggard. It say, observe its ways and become wise. Without leaders, administrators, or rulers, it prepares its provision in summer. It gathers its food during harvest." And here again, the unexpected will occur, but you prepare for it.
That's it.
And you
That's
want to
it.
make sure that you do that.
That's it.
The fourth thing is set long-term goals, because there's always a trade-off between the short-term and the long-term.
That's so real.
And that comes from Philippians 3:14, which says, "I continue my pursuit toward the goal, the prize of God's upward calling in Christ Jesus."
so real.
Okay, so you got to set
That's it.
these long-term goals,
That's it.
because there's definitely a trade-off.
That's it. That's
all
it.
right?
That's so real.
And finally, it says, my fifth one is, give generously, because giving breaks the power of money.
That's so real.
It breaks the power of money.
That's so
And that
real.
comes from 2 Corinthians 9, 6 through 9. And that says, consider this, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly. We hear this preached all the time,
Yeah,
right? Do
that's
we
so
not?
funny.
And whoever sow bountifully will also reap bountifully. Each must do as already determined, without sadness or compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. Moreover, God is able to make every grace abundant to you, so that in all things, always having all you need, you may have an abundance for every good work. As is written, he scatters abroad, he gives to the poor, his righteousness endures forever.
That's
And
yeah.
so when we talk about these things,
Yeah.
they're all scripturally based,
That's it.
and if we look at our finances and we go to scripture, we will see that there's solidarity in terms of what God's word says,
Yeah.
and we can become wealthy if we just follow his word.
That's it. It's crazy that like I talked about this on Sunday that we want God's great plans,
Yes.
and when it comes to like turning around a medical diagnosis or turning around a relationship,
Yes.
when it comes to my money, I'll figure it out. And I'm like, I wonder what it'd be like to give our money over to Him.
Yes.
The last question I had for you, and you meant it was alluded to in one of the scriptures you mentioned about the slave being enslaved to the lender, right?
Mhm.
And one of the things meant to bring up, I meant to write down was I've heard this thing online. A lot of these TikTok influencers
Mhm.
talk about good debt.
Mhm.
Is there a such thing as good debt?
I think that there could be good debt. As you know, we have this system where we look at our credit score.
Mhm.
And that comes about. You get, I think, 850 is the best you can get, and that comes about managing money well.
Yeah.
And which means that you get debt, you get a house, you get a car, and you take care of your responsibility.
Yeah.
So is what I would consider more aligned good debt.
Got it.
Because here again, you don't want to get into debt that you cannot take care of and pay for, which will cause your credit score to be in a 4, 5, 600.
Yeah.
You want
Yeah.
something that's going to put you in the 800, 700
Yeah.
category.
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember, man, the day I hit 700, I was like, "What in the world? Like, I don't know, it's possible." Oh my God! And I was like, so it was like, man, I want to keep paying these things off, man. It felt so good to break that and to see that and to get the good numbers. But then the crazy thing is, when we broke it, all of a sudden, they're all businesses, so they sell your information.
Yes.
All of a sudden, everybody wants you to get a credit
that's
card.
right.
And
That's right.
you should buy this and go get this house, and
Right.
it was just amazing that like. Not to get distracted by
Yes.
that, right? And that's something even personally, like I used to, like even right now, my wife and I we're really working on the things we talk about, which I get these principles, so I'm clear out, cut back, and pay off, and so we're working on paying off a lot of our debt, right?
Right.
And it's there were some shoes that have come out. And I sit there and I put in my background on my phone, and I want them so bad, but I'm like, it's my reward. These $200 shoes, I'm like, my reward is when we pay off these next 3 credit cards, I could get them. So I tell you, when I get these military blue Jordans, I've been paid off 3 credit cards. But it's just been a way that we try to reward ourselves
Yes.
to do it. And then even like we did one a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I don't even want to buy anything because I'm like, I actually kind of like the feeling of like not being indebted to anyone, right? And so it's a beautiful thing. So thank you so much, Brother Elton.
You're welcome.
If
You're
there
welcome.
was one thing, my last question to you, random, if there was one thing you could tell to someone in church about like whether it's generosity, financial management, wealth building, if there was one general financial advice that you could give to someone or two, what would you tell someone?
I would tell them that, first of all, they have to really trust God. We say, sort of cavalier, that we trust God, but when we are put to the test, do we really? I think that if we put our faith and trust in Him and allow Him to guide and direct our path in the way that His will is being upheld, then we'll be in a much better position. I think that we just like to use the old saying, since we go to church, that I'm blessed and highly favored, and all these cliches. But what do we really feel in the depth of our heart in terms of our relationship with God? And I believe that if we truly put our faith and trust Him, He will reveal to us those things that we otherwise would not even begin to fathom, because in my own personal life, I've seen God do some miraculous things, and I just like to share a quick testimony that my wife and I, Ruby, we are tithers and have been tithers for many years. I grew up Catholic, and I felt when I met Ruby, she was Baptist, and so I just felt my giving my little $25 a week was great. I thought I was doing good. No one told me it wasn't. And then I was converted and became Baptist, and I was taught under Dr. Lee's dad, and I was convicted to tithe. And I never forget, I lost my job in 1993, and I had begun tithing at that point. And I remember after losing the job and having the monthly bills and stuff like that, should I, because I was getting unemployment at the time, and the Lord convicted me. Are you going to trust me? Are you going to trust me? And Ruby and I have not wavered in that. We continue to tithe, and I could tell many stories of the things God has done for us and have blessed us. His faithfulness is true, and I think we want to believe, we want to trust, but we are not willing to sometimes step out on a limb and say that I'm going to trust you, Lord. Whatever happened will happen.
No, thank you for sharing that. Thank you. That's one thing about tithing where I want to have next year the testimony of tithing, right? I want to hear testimonies of it because I think so often when we do talk about it, it's like we're trying to take it when really it's the truth of like faithfulness to God, man, always pays
That's
off.
right. That's
And
right.
there's this old song we used to sing, like, you can't beat God giving,
That's
no
correct.
matter how hard you try. But I love it because as I was breaking down Malachi chapter 3, God literally says, no, there's one place you can try me, and it is giving.
Yes,
So
right.
try to beat me.
That's right.
Try to, no,
That's
try
right.
to. And
That's
the
right.
more you try, I'll increase your capacity.
That's right.
I'll increase your territory because I'll ensure you'll
Yeah.
never beat me giving.
Absolutely. And one thing that I've come to realize that my wife went through contracted encephalitis in 2011, and we had gone through some tremendous things during that time, but we have seen God's faithfulness and God being there for us. We have seen you. When you see my wife, you see a walking miracle.
Wow.
I'm telling you, God.
Wow.
And so when He gives back, it's not just necessarily
Yeah.
monetarily.
Yeah.
There are many other ways in which He gives back
So
to
much
us.
so. Brother Elton, thank you. Thank you.
You're
Everyone
welcome.
in the comments, if you say thank you as well. And I pray you guys enjoyed this series and see our heart for it. And so we'll have some conversations going into next year. But you guys received a card on Sunday, those of you watching online, for our 90-day tithe challenge. I'm challenging every member of Friendship to trust God with the tithe for at least the first 3 months of the year. So starting January 1st, I want you to pray through that card. And on January 1st, bring that card with you to church. And you'll get an email from me, a message from me weekly. You'll get a phone call from me monthly as well on the 90-day tithe challenge that I'm believing by faith that we will have a church where at least 40% of us are tithing. And so starting the first Sunday of January, I want you to pray through it. And we'll start the tithing challenge the first week of January. And I look forward to seeing how God is going to do some amazing stuff by the end of the month of March. And so let's get ready for 2024. Thank you again, Brother Elton. Thank you, man. Remember this, less is more, stress is bad, giving is good, tomorrow matters. I will see you on Sunday for Christmas Eve service. Wear your ugly sweaters. Santa's coming for the kids. There'll be free pictures after church. We got hot cocoa and coffee outside. It'll be a wonderful time, and invite someone. I want to put chairs down the aisles as we celebrate Jesus' birthday on Sunday. You guys have an amazing day. God bless you.